Hello my friends, welcome to part 3 in a series of videos that answers the question, are fire and air signs more extroverted? Are earth and water signs more introverted? And in this video we're going to dig in deeper into looking at the elements, the fire, earth, air, and water. We've looked at each individual sign and we've explored a lot of different things. We found out that older people are more introverted than younger people. Now we have the graph of each individual element where we take Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius, the 3 fire signs, combine them together. Maybe by combining them together, we can find something. We already found out, as we discussed in the first 2 parts of this series. By the way, you don't need to go back to those. If you jumped in here, that's fine. But we found out in the earlier 2 videos in the series that overall the elements are not working. Fire signs are not more extroverted, and air signs are not more extroverted, and the earth and water are not more introverted. But now we're going to look at the individual elements. Maybe fire to water or something. We want to analyze every little detail in searching and hoping, you might say, to find something. We did this already for zodiac signs. We compared like Sun in Sagittarius to Sun in Scorpio. Amazingly, if you're an astrologer, no relationship. Sagittarius is not more extroverted than Scorpio. And that was true for Sun and Moon. So we looked at each, look at the specific ones. So when we compare, here we have E to A, that means earth to air, and here's fire to air and so on. Do we see a line that's very far to the right or very far to the left? If the line does not overlap the dashed vertical line, it means we're 95% confident that there's a difference. Now, we're making so many comparisons between so many different things. There's something called a Bonferroni correction. Actually, we're not actually completely 95% confident because we're comparing so many things. By chance, something just by random chance will appear there. We keep looking at so many comparisons. But still, if we find something all the way to the right or left, it gives us the possibility that in the future we could do another study. So when you do research, you come to certain conclusions and you get hints for what you can do in the future, other things you can look at. So that's what we're doing here. Can we even get a hint of something to look at? Well, on the upper left here is Sun. This is the Sun, the elements of the Sun. And what we find, is there any of these horizontal lines that's very far to the right or left? This one at the bottom only overlaps the dashed line a little bit, showing that the first element, it says water to fire, the water is more extroverted than fire. Oh my God. Exact opposite of what we would expect. If this was fire to water, if fire was being more extroverted than water, we might say, oh, maybe we could do some additional research. Maybe we can change our model a little bit. Maybe we could add something like decadent signs or Dwadasamsa signs. I mean, there's so many things you could do. Maybe we could weight different signs more heavily, like Sagittarius more extroverted than Aries, Leo. Maybe we could weight it. I mean, you could explore other ways to model the data. This is what modern research is all about. Exploring, investigating, manipulating, playing, trying to model, trying to find something, and then you get a new insight. But here, telling us water was more extroverted than fire, it's probably just a random fluctuation. It's not agreeing with our theory. It's not looking good. And now this is very strange. Whoa, this is weird. Look at, on the upper right, Mercury. Mercury also has water more extroverted than fire. Both Sun and Mercury are, water is more extroverted than fire. In the lower left we have the Moon. Well, it's almost more normal You're going to get some random fluctuations that look like there's a theme going on. And this is also weird. The sun, fire, is more introverted than Earth, and Mercury, fire, is more introverted than Earth. I think what's going on here is that Sun and Mercury are always close to each other in the sky, geocentrically. They're within, 28 degrees, if I remember right? So they're often in the same sign. Oh, that's kind of deflating. Well, it's just that they tend to be in the same sign or next sign. So it's probably just a random fluctuation. This is what we do in research. It depends on your expertise as an astrologer to think through these things and come up with a conclusion. It's not that the research is like some external thing. You engage with it. You're trying to draw out of this information something that you can make sense out of. It's a creative, exploratory process. Now, from my point of view, I'm not finding anything. If you are an astrologer, maybe you're seeing something I'm missing. That's why we have peer review. That's why we have groups. That's why we brainstorm all the time. Because people will just, look at this. And you go, oh my God, maybe you will have that kind of thing. I'm not getting it. Maybe I'm, whatever. It's just not there. There's no support for this idea that the fire and air signs are more extroverted and earth and water are more introverted. Okay, and in the lower right is Venus. Looks very, very random, no support. And here we just look at some others. Here's Mars. You might think Mars might be related to introversion, extroversion. Like if Mars is in Aries or like out there, no relationship. Now when we start getting to Jupiter, we're starting to get some generational effects because Jupiter takes a year to go through the sign, but still nothing. Very random. By the time we get to Saturn, we can have some differences of age, but I skipped that because we already know from the previous videos that Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto have a relationship to introversion, extroversion, and we demonstrated very clearly and very unambiguously that that's because of the age of the people. So they're not related either. So I thought I've got room on this slide for two more, so I filled it in with the ascendant and midheaven because they're so important. Ascendant element has nothing to do with introversion, extroversion, and the midheaven doesn't. It's just very consistent and very clear. These visualizations help us see what's going on. Now, we're still not giving up. Not giving up. We try and we try and we try everything we can to see if we could show some possibility that the zodiac signs, or maybe the signs combined as elements, where you put Aries, Leo, and Sag together as fire signs, show some indication, please, that you're related. So we're going to try yet another thing. And what this is called Anova. You put a C in there. Anova. And this means you control for a covariate. Exactly what we need. Oh my God, the perfect thing. Sometimes there's a tool to help you, sometimes there isn't. We got lucky. There's something called Anova, which will control for what we call a continuous variable. The bottom line is, it will, in essence, remove age, because age is an extraneous variable. It's messing things up. It's messing up with our analysis of zodiac signs, because the signs of the outer planets are correlated with the age. It removes that. How cool is that? I mean, these mathematical geniuses have figured out the coolest things. They can isolate that away so we're just looking at the zodiac signs. Awesome. So let's try it. It's just a little more stuff we do. Another variation of what we did before in the R software that gives us all this information. So we're going to remove, and I've got some quotes here from this website, statisticsbygym.com, where he explains it. And let me read it to you, just so you know a little bit about this. What I'm saying first is that the age of the person can be treated as a covariate in using Anova. Anova is the same as Anova, except it controls for covariate. Now, to quote from this website, just to learn a little bit about how these analyses are done, what is a covariate? A covariates are continuous independent variables that influence the dependent variable, but are not of primary interest to the study. The dependent variable means what you want to know about, introversion, extroversion. The independent variables are the things like the zodiac signs. So a covariate is one of those variables, but that's not primary interest of the study. I don't care about age. That's not my primary interest. I learned something about it. Older people are more introverted, but that's not my primary interest. My primary interest, I'm trying to find out about the zodiac signs. So to continue reading from this website, researchers refer to covariates as nuisance variables. Yes, it's a nuisance. This age of the people, the older people being more introverted, it's a nuisance. It's getting in the way of what I'm looking at. Exactly what he's describing is exactly our situation. So other people doing different kinds of research run into the same problem. So they're nuisance because they're uncontrolled conditions in the experiment. They can influence the outcome, and they are. Excuse me. This unfortunate combination of attributes allows covariates to introduce both imprecision and bias into the results. You can see why they're a nuisance. Yes, it's a huge nuisance. Bro, you just described my situation. I would like to just remove this age. Simply put, Anova removes the effects of the covariates on the dependent variable. Oh my God, wonderful. Allowing for a more accurate assessment of the relationship between the categorical factors. The categorical factors are the zodiac signs. This is just statistical language. And the outcome. Outcome is also called a dependent variable. That means the introversion, extroversion. Perfecto, man. This is what we want. So let's do it. It won't hurt. Let's give it a try. So we run an Anova to again determine if the zodiac sign placements are associated with introversion, extroversion scores, and we control for the age of the person. This gives us a more accurate estimate of the association of zodiac signs with introversion, extroversion scores. And on the following slides, let's look at the results. And what we see is essentially the same thing we found before, except the impact of the Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto signs is much weaker than it was without the control for age. In other words, when we don't control for age, that we sometimes call extraneous variable, that nuisance variable of age. If you go back, it was like e to the minus 16. I mean, it was like the probability was like 0.000000001. It was the zodiac sign of Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. Absolutely, you can tell with great confidence how introverted the person is. And that's only because of the age. When we remove the age, I suspected that the Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto would go up to at least 0.1 or 0.2, but they didn't. They're at 0.002, 004. They're still having some effect. Whoa. So in other words, when Uranus is in a certain sign, it's still inclining to introversion, extroversion in what we call a non-linear way. See, if it was linear, it would just mean the older people are more introverted. But there's something going on in addition. And this confirms another finding from previous research. Excuse me, which is there are cultural differences. You can take people in a certain time and place, it's kind of obvious, and they're going to be more introverted, right? I mean, certain cultures are more introverted and other cultures are more extroverted, just the way it is. You can go to a certain city where everybody's buzzing around. If you're working in libraries and other academic situations that are very quiet, you have all these introverts. So people gather together in their extroverted ways. They have big parties and introverts get together, excuse me, and they do their quiet little things with their close friends. So obviously, there's different cultural tendencies. And what we're seeing from this is what's happening is, I'll summarize this. When you're in your 50s and 60s, you're older, you're more introverted than you were when you were in your 20s and 30s. As you get older, you get more introverted, less need for lots of sociability with a lot of people, things like that. However, there's also age group tendencies where maybe people in their late 30s are actually more introverted. In their late 30s are more extroverted. Sorry, let me say that again. People in their late 30s may be more extroverted than people in their late 20s. In other words, instead of the older people being more introverted, as usually is the case, there are some exceptions. Because there are cultural changes. Look at all the changes. Like, kids are playing video games. Maybe that's making them more introverted because they're not interacting as much. Maybe. I'm not making that argument. It's certainly possible. Certain media things bring people out. When big rock concerts are happening, there's popular groups and people going out, and it's getting them into an extroverted mode. Changes in the way classes are taught as different kinds of education. They decide to test kids more and be more rigorous, and it's going to make them more introverted. You got to stay home and study more. Maybe there's more funding for sports, getting people out. Things change. And there are cultural changes. And in the United States, cultural changes happen a lot. It's a very dynamic, changing society. So what this is telling us is that, yes, you can have a 7-year period that starts becoming more extroverted. So what you have is something that's like a wavy line going down, where the older you are, the more introverted you are. And then younger, you get more and more extroverted. However, there's little bumps. It's not a straight line where you can just take your age and know how introverted or extroverted you are. There's little waves in it as there are cultural changes. This finding confirms that there are cultural changes that lead to some difference. So it's not a perfect linear thing. Basically, to summarize, this research is trying to find support for astrology, for zodiac signs. It's not finding any support, but it's confirming two ideas from previous research on introversion-extraversion. Older people are more introverted, and there are fluctuations in that tendency caused by the cultural changes. Now, a sociologist or a psychologist might want to go in and look at why people, maybe in their late 30s, people in Vermont who were going to college, why were the people in their late 30s more extroverted than people in their late 20s, when typically they would be more introverted because they're older? Little fluctuations. You can look at what was happening culturally. You can do interviews with them. You could pursue that if you were interested in it. The research is saying there are cultural effects on introversion and extroversion. We already knew that from other research. So while we're looking to confirm some ideas in astrology, we're finding out no support for that, but support for two other findings about introversion and extroversion. Older people are more introverted, and there are fluctuations based on cultural changes. You come up with a reasoning that fits the data. So we're building a model, and the most reasonable model is what I just explained. Older people are more introverted, and there are cultural changes that affect it as well. Two things already confirmed in a lot of previous research, and that would make sense of why Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto signs would have some effect. The other planets, no effect. Look at this. Crazy high values. They're just not working at all. It's even surprising to me, like how poor the results are poor in terms of if you were hoping to see something. So to conclude, I want to mention that I don't think I talked about this in any detail, or probably not at all, is that Robert Curry did some research on extroversion, introversion. He also got Eysenck Personality Test scores and birth data. He got it from Jeffrey Dean. Jeffrey Dean, some of you may know, is an anti-astrology guy. He's like, astrology is nonsense, and he just does research to show that it's nonsense. And he has some data, and he shared it with Robert, but he did not make it public. So I need to send an email to Jeffrey Dean and ask him, can I use your data as well? Personally, I don't recommend this. We should make the data available. The data I used is from commercial software. The serious software, we can make a request to the people that make that software. They could just take that little part of their software and make it more available. But anyway, I don't have control over that. So we try to make the data available. We don't try to hide it from people. But for some reason, Jeffrey Dean doesn't want to make this data, very valuable data, just publicly available. I'm not sure what the reason is. So I can ask him and see if I can get access to it. So I'm not able to replicate with Robert's data. But the nice thing about Robert's data is he has the answers to each question. There are 57 questions in this Eysenck Personality Test. I don't have that. I'm going to contact Professor Fink and see if he might still have a record of that. Because what Robert did is he looked at each question and found certain questions sound like fire, earth, air, water, in addition to the actual scores. I don't have those individual answers yet. I will be contacting Professor Fink. I will let you know in future videos whether we have that data. Also, the personality test, this Eysenck Personality Test, has another scale of stability and neuroticism. I did not get those scores from Professor Fink. I don't know if he still has them. He did this research a long time ago. He's retired. He's no longer active as a teacher. I will find out. If we don't have it, we don't have it. If we do, we can do some more analysis. If I have the answers to the individual questions, it would be awesome to take Robert's weighting, apply it to my data. This is not my data. It's 900, the data I used in my study. 940 people. Its data was collected by Professor Fink, and see if Robert's model works. So there's all kinds of things to explore. Will his way of analyzing work with the new data? This is what research is about. You explore, you dig, you try to find. And what we can say right now is, based on this very comprehensive look at it, we need to carefully compare to some of the other research, but as far as this research study goes, there's no support for the introversion-extraversion. Based on Robert's findings, there might be a more subtle or fine way of thinking about what zodiac signs do. And we also have evidence of that, or suggestions of it, in that the water signs came out more extroverted than fire signs in some cases. Maybe the signs don't relate directly to extroversion, introversion, but we could take the answers to the questions and categorize them differently and see what they're doing. So maybe the signs do something, but it's not extroversion, introversion. Although you would think Sagittarius is more extroverted than Scorpio, and we're not finding that. So, conclusion. Conclusion for now, we can say there is no support for zodiac signs connected to introversion, extroversion. We'll dig into the other studies as carefully as we can and see if we can modify that conclusion. But for now, that's my conclusion. Also, I've made videos about the research on married couples, over 20,000 married couples with birth data, unable to see zodiac signs work with them. The bottom line is we're not able to get support for zodiac signs having measurable effects. In the extreme case sampling study on zodiac signs, we did find in some consistent personality traits among people with zodiac signs. We do have some support for zodiac signs. It's a qualitative study. When we try to get measurable results, we looked at the greatest athletes of all time. We looked at the great musicians. We looked at accidents. Everything with bipolar disorder. We cannot get its support for zodiac signs. When we do this pattern analysis of what we call vibrations in the sky, oh my God, it's just the opposite. Things pop out. After I finish this introversion-extraversion study, I think my next focus is going to be on accidents, because the accident research we did in the past, very strong promise, very promising results, very positive, that we can actually see things. Of course, the bipolar disorder research and the book that I wrote about it is a massive breakthrough. Again, the focus is on these intricate patterns. That seems to work. Okay, I think I have one more slide. Yeah, so future directions for research, and this is the last slide, really. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to make a series of videos for those people who want to do research. I'm going to show you the R scripts, they're called. I'm going to show you how the analysis was done. I'm going to upload onto my website, astrologydc.com, the R scripts. So if you want to do similar types of research, you'll have something to build from, because it takes hours and hours and hours. It did for me anyway, to build those scripts and get all those beautiful graphs. Once that's done in the context of this kind of research, when you want to do something similar, you can just take that and use it as a foundation for the next thing. So as we do this research, future research gets easier and easier and easier as we build the kind of analysis that's useful for us. And so the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to document how the research was done, in case anybody wants to do the research, and you'll have the R scripts and you'll be able to replicate everything. It'll make future research easier by having scripts that actually work and see what they did. And then I'm going to look at Sun, Saturn in 7th vibration, Jupiter in 11th vibration, a few other things that I think will give positive results. And so I'm going to make videos about that. We'll see if I'm right. The research I did back in 2010 indicated it, but we're going to do it more carefully. Then I'm going to probably go on to the accident research. So next videos will be about how I did this research, and for a handful of you who might want to get into it or future time want to, and then we'll look at the vibrational stuff. That's what I'm really excited about personally, because I'm a, quote, vibrational astrologer. I mean, that's what I do, and that's what I think will work. Let's see if it does. Okay, that's it. So I want to just thank you. This is the third video in a series of videos. If you're a subscriber, thank you so much. If you're a member, members pay either $5 or $10 a month to meet with me live monthly. There's 3 ways to become a member, and there's 2 levels of membership. The gold membership, a 1-hour meeting each month on the first Tuesday, and then the platinum, which is $10 a month. And we meet online. We have a Zoom meeting, and you can ask me questions, discuss things. And there's lots of bright, creative people attending those, so we share all this stuff. Yeah, but the videos, I've made over 700 videos. They're free for everybody to use. It's just if you want some live interaction. But become a subscriber if you're not, even if you're not going to become a member, is very, very helpful. Thank you for for watching this video and being a part of this. God bless. Namaste.